Michael, thank you for that. Back here at the Magical, we want to revisit the question of Ebola. And as you can see, we have the map of Africa, which has generally been classified as a level 2 risk by the World Health Organization. So let's see how it could come into Kenya. Obviously, this is the point of origin in Nigeria, Cameroon, that's West Africa. And if it was to land here, then of course by air first at JKIA. But that's obviously not the only scenario. We do have the other major border points, as you can see them radiating on your screen: Lokichogio, Moyale, Wajir, Garissa, Namanga, and Busia. So let's speak now to the Health Cabinet Secretary to help us understand. Good evening. First, why is it that despite the concern that there is in Kenya being at a level 2 risk, you are not advising the national carrier to halt its flights into West Africa, yes. I should say, not altogether?
Actually, thank you that you come up with that question, because I think from yesterday's WHO statement, there was a lot of misconception that the level of risk for Kenya is actually different from other countries in Africa. And I'm glad that you did say that the level of risk in Kenya is the same as the rest of Africa. Point number one. Number two, if you are to ban the flights to West Africa, those 4 countries, you have to first do a risk assessment. And then secondly, determine the outcomes. You know that it's not only Kenya Airways which is flying to West Africa. We have Ethiopian Airlines, we got Rwanda Air. So what would happen is, if you banned Kenya Airways going to those 4 countries, then you'd have to deal with the issues of passengers coming through Addis, coming through Kigali. And so the outcome will not have been much.
Could I rephrase the question? Why not a blanket ban on air travel first, regardless of the route? And I suppose that would be done through KAA, perhaps. Why are you not advising for that, for a blanket ban? Has that risk assessment been done?
Well, it's a continuous process. And as of now, what you're trying to do is to review the situation on a daily basis. For example, tomorrow morning, we are sending 2 doctors to Freetown and to Monrovia to basically assess the situation on the ground. As of now, we have actually done assessment to determine the process of screening, all the way from the exit point in Monrovia and Freetown, through in-flight, to the time they land in Kenya. And we have determined that the level of risk is actually, as of now, very minimal. Obviously, we don't want to downplay the risk, but also you have to determine the fact that we are living in a global village. And I would say that level of risk is only 2 categories: those countries with Ebola, the 4 countries, and the rest of the world, because we live in a global village. And so it's not even right to say that the risk in Africa is different from other countries outside Africa,
but given
because we live in a global village.
Okay, I accept that, but given the number of, number one, and right now we're just sticking to flights. Obviously, there's other ways they could get into the country, but we have about, is it 7 flights a week?
76.
76 flights a week, yes. I beg your pardon, yes. From Kenya to West Africa. Kenyans are part of this route, and they're wondering, is their government not concerned that with that frequency of travel that they would obviously be at a significantly higher risk?
I think I will tell you, maybe to give you confidence and to give Kenyans confidence, the kind of process we've been following in terms of screening the passengers. From the exit point, we have health workers on the ground, both from those countries, but also we have KQ workers who basically they've been trained as to how to identify suspicious cases. Then through in-flight, if there was a suspicious case, the crew of Kenya Airways have been trained as to how to react. And then when they land to Nairobi, we actually have 2 separate gates at JKA. And
I want to come to the details of that, but let me just bring your attention to the breaking news that you're seeing at the bottom of your screen. And as you can see, the Director General of the National Intelligence Service, Major Michael Gishangi, has resigned. This is breaking news we're just receiving. I'm going to read to you excerpts from a statement that we have received from State House by the spokesman, Manoa Esipisu, and he says that the President regrets to announce the resignation on personal grounds of Major General Michael Gishangi as the Director General of the National Intelligence Service. Gishangi had a distinguished and colorful career spanning 4 decades in Kenya's Defense Forces, where he rose through the ranks to Major General. The much decorated Major General Gishangi was appointed to head Kenya's intelligence gathering in 2006 for a 5-year term. There is also in this statement the reshuffle of principal secretaries to enhance service delivery. The president has then made the following changes. Ambassador Dr. Monica Juma now to the Department of Interior, Mutea Iringo to the Ministry of Defense, Patrick Omutia, I beg your pardon, to the Ministry of Mining, Ambassador Richard Etai Titus to the Ministry of Sports and Culture, Ambassador John Conchella to the East Africa Community, and Dr. Khadija Kasachun to the Ministry of Health, and Professor Fred Segor to the Department of Livestock. This statement continues to add a list of transfers for ambassadors. I will not go through it verbatim right now, but of course, as you can see the breaking news on your screen, the Director General of the National Intelligence Service, Major General Michael Gishangi, has resigned from the service on personal grounds. That is after a career spanning 4 decades in Kenya's defense forces. This is an interesting development. Certainly, there has been a lot of concern regarding the security situation in the country and a lot of agitation as to changes at the helm of the security apparatus. And perhaps this is the first of perhaps others, but on this from this statement, the president saying that these were personal grounds for the resignation, certainly something that we will be probing in the days to come. Let's return now to our interview. I apologize for that, CS. Okay. This is a newsroom generally, so this thank you. Yeah. You didn't know that either. I know. Yeah. We're receiving it together. Yeah. But thank you. I want to return to the question of Ebola, and you were pointing out the surveillance. The Kenya Medical Association believes you are not doing enough. In fact, they say that the best way to deal with Ebola would be to quarantine anyone who in the last month has traveled to that particular region, West Africa, and to ensure that blood samples are taken, and only after the sample proves to be negative should they be released from quarantine. What do you think of that?
Well, to be honest, I'm very surprised to hear that kind of statement coming from doctors who should know that in terms of the transmission of that disease, number one, you have to go through the incubation period of between 2 days and 21 days. During that period, you cannot transmit, Ebola. Thereafter, you get sick, and thereafter, you can then be able to transmit the disease. And so, the screening process at JKA and other ports of entry, they are very robust. For example, at the JKA, we have actually put three shifts. So, the process is 24 hours.
Are blood samples taken?
You see, what happens is the first thing is you are tested for your temperature, and if it's beyond 37.2% or centigrade, you actually taken to a separate room where then further tests are done. If it's a case which appears likely, then you'll be taken to Kenyatta National Hospital, where we have established a temporary holding room, and then samples will be taken. Chemically, you do the assessment within 6 hours, which will get the results. And so far, in fact, we've had the process tested. Some of the suspicious cases have been tested, and all have been negative.
All right.
So to quarantine everybody is like saying stop flying completely, which is really not possible.
All right, I'm told I must wind up, but I have 2 very quick questions for you. You, of course, know there's an experimental drug that the WHO has allowed to be used. Would Kenya at all use this drug on first health workers who are at the first point of risk, if you like, and then second, of course, possibly on an Ebola case?
Yeah, you see, this particular drug, which is called ZMAP, has been actually been administered on 2 patients, and those were critical cases. And what you have to determine is, if you don't administer, what next? The option is death.
So Kenya would?
We would, indeed.
Okay. Yes, you would use an experimental drug on your citizens. I wish I could get into the ethical questions on that, but we can't.
But you see, ethical-wise, WHO actually has confirmed it's ethical to do so. Okay. Because what are the options? It's actually common sense. If you don't administer, the person actually dies. So you really have to decide.
Cabinet Secretary, I must wind it up there. I thank you very much indeed for speaking to us. All right, let's return to that breaking news story that we have received in our newsroom. The President announcing that Major General Michael Gishangi has resigned as the Director General of the National Intelligence Service.
Of Major General Michael Gishangi as Director General of the National Intelligence Service. Gishangi has had a distinguished and colorful career, spanning 4 decades in Kenya's defense forces, where he rose through the ranks to the rank of Major General. The much decorated Major General Gishangi was appointed to head Kenya's intelligence gathering in 2006 on a 5-year term. That term in office was renewed in 2011. He has played his role as Director General of NIS with commitment, dedication, professionalism, which our country is grateful for. His Excellency the President thanks Major General Gishangi for his distinguished services to the country. His Excellency the President has requested Major General Gishangi to remain in his role until a replacement is nominated. Further to this, His Excellency the President has asked me to announce the following changes in his administration. To enhance service delivery, the President says it has become necessary to realign the appointment and assignment of portfolio responsibilities of government as contained in Executive Order number 2 of 2013. In this regard, the President has made the following changes. Ambassador Dr. Monica Juma becomes Principal Secretary in the Department of Interior. Mutea Iringo becomes Principal Secretary in the Ministry of Defense. Patrick Omutia becomes Principal Secretary in the Ministry of Mining. Ambassador Richard Ekai Titus becomes Principal Secretary in the Ministry of Sports, Culture, and the Arts. Mrs. Mwanamaka Amani Mabruki becomes Principal Secretary in the Department of Devolution. Ambassador John Conchella becomes Principal Secretary in the Department of East African Community. Dr. Khadija Kasachom becomes Principal Secretary in the Ministry of Health. And Professor Fred H.K. Sigor becomes Principal Secretary in the Department of Livestock. This order becomes effective immediately. His Excellency the President has also instructed me to announce the following. The President has made the following nominations to the post of Ambassador. Robinson Gidai, nominee for Washington. Chirau Ali Mwakwere, nominee for Dar es Salaam. Kiema Kilonzo, nominee for Istanbul, Turkey. Sam Ongeri, nominee for Habitat. Richard Opembe, nominee for Dublin. Mahmoud Mohammed, nominee for Saudi Arabia, that's Riyadh. Lucy Chalimo, nominee for Ottawa. George Masafu, nominee for the Democratic Republic of Congo. Professor Bitok, nominee for Khartoum. Joseph Magut, nominee for Berlin. Major General Geoff Otieno, nominee for Cairo. Galma Boru, nominee for Doha. Isaac Njenga, nominee for Windhoek. Sheikh Dor, nominee for Muscat. Dr. Karau, nominee for Geneva. Professor Charles Nzoika, nominee for Kuala Lumpur. Sophie Kadzo Kombo, nominee for Lusaka. And Rukia Sugor, nominee for Tehran. The President has also made the following transfers within the ambassadorial postings. Mohamed Gello is transferred to Seoul, Korea. Lazarus Amayo is transferred to London. John Lanyasunya is transferred to Algiers. Ali Abbas transferred to Kuwait. Ambassador S.K. Maina transferred to Tokyo. Ambassador Lemo Rashira transferred to Harare. Joseph Maikara transferred to Luanda, Angola. Jean Kamau transferred to Bangkok. The President has also appointed the following deputy ambassadors. Jane Waikenda becomes deputy head of mission in Pretoria, South Africa. Belinda Achieng Omino, deputy ambassador to India, based in New Delhi. And Agri Shitsama is deputy ambassador. His station will be communicated in due course. Further announcements will be made later. I thank you.